recording going. So most people hear about finding your calling, they think about finding their passion or finding their purpose. And those are great questions. I love those questions, but I approach finding your calling in a very different way. And I've never taught this publicly before, but I realized I have to do it now. Even though I didn't quite feel ready, I realized I have to do it because I feel like we are already out of our comfort zone, right? If you think about, like, if this box is your comfort zone, I think most of us are already out of it, right? We're like out here maybe, or maybe you're all the way over here. We are already in abnormal times. Maybe this is the time to start doing things that aren't so normal. And so today we are definitely going to be out of your comfort zone. We're going to be talking about finding your calling. I'm going to be asking some questions hopefully you've never asked yourself before. And I love it. We have people from all over Ontario, Canada, from France. I love it, from Vegas, from Texas. And also I love all these things that people are putting in here about why you came, why this class was calling to you. I'm here because I love all your videos and have your book. Oh, Kat, thank you so much. Love it. Oh, joining from Maryland to find a muse to inspire my new website. Okay, so whatever reason you're here, I'm hoping that I can give us a system to begin to think about our calling. And what I want to do is I actually want to start with a story. Are you ready for a little story? All right, so here we go. By the way, I feel like we're doing so many video calls and Zoom calls. I wanted to shake it up a little bit and try something a little bit different. So we're going to be doing slides. We're going to be doing some games. I'm going to be drawing some things. My drawing is not so good. Big forewarning on that. So I want to start off with a story. And one of the pleasures that I've had in life is I've noticed that a lot of our students who join People School, who join our courses, they accidentally stumble upon their calling, or they uncover things as they're working on their communication skills, as they're working on their relationships. And there's a story that I want to kick us off with, and this is about Alfred B. Nobel. So maybe you've heard of Nobel, the Nobel Peace Prize. But what most people don't know is something very interesting happened to Alfred B. Nobel. So one day, Alfred B. Nobel woke up and he opened his newspaper, and he saw in his newspaper was his own obituary. Somehow there had been a hoax or a practical joke or a miscommunication that he had died. And here in the newspaper, they announced he had died, and they had his entire obituary in the newspaper. And so he had this very unique, horrifying experience of reading his own legacy, of reading his own obituary. And what he read absolutely horrified and shocked him. Now, what most people don't know is before he created the Nobel Peace Prize, Alfred Nobel was a weapons expert. He created weapons. And when he read his obituary, he read things that he did not expect were going to be what he was remembered for. So he read things like warmonger, that he was the person who became rich by finding the most ways to kill more people. Ooh. The merchant of death, they called him in this obituary. They called him rich. That was one that was over and over again. And they called him an explosive expert. He read this and he was horrified because while he had been doing that his whole life, he couldn't believe that this was going to be his legacy. This is what people were saying about him. And so in that moment, he decided to change his life and he decided to change his legacy. And so of course he told the newspaper, hey friends, I'm actually alive. And then he also decided he was going to start the Nobel Peace Prize, where he would celebrate and award big thinkers, scientists who are changing the world and doing better things. And that changed his legacy. Now, when you think of Alfred Nobel, you think of the Nobel Peace Prize. He actively changed his calling. He changed his legacy. And so the very first question I want to ask, if you're brave enough, and I'm so happy there's so much activity in chat, so take a deep breath. Let's get out of our comfort zone. Here's the big question I want to ask, which is, what do you want people to say when they talk about you? So right now, what are the stories that people are sharing about you? When they think about you, what do you want them to think about? Do you want them to think that you're loving, that you're caring, that you're a teacher, that you're an entrepreneur, that you're a business person, that you're rich, that you're successful? What are the things you want people to say about you when they talk about you? See if anyone's brave in chat. All right, here we go. All right, we have, oops, there's a lot of people. Okay, we have, I want to say that I make people laugh. They feel at home around me. That is beautiful. I would love for people to say, what a nice person, that I made the world better. Okay, so Yolanda said, I'm going to write some of these down. So, made the world better. I love that you made people laugh. Some other ones. I would like people to say, Linda said that I am real. I love it. Okay, we have kind, helpful, and thoughtful. Helpful. I love this one too, from Scott, poet, father, creative thinker. Oh my goodness. I love seeing all these answers, by the way, if you're looking in chat. Creative thinker. Okay, what else do we have here? That people say I'm a hard worker, that I'm creative, that I'm family focused, that I have a big heart. Thank you for that one, Mark. I was wanting to draw a symbol. Symbols are so much easier than words. Isaiah said that he's a great influencer. Okay, thank you for that one. So I want you to take a look at these answers in chat and just a couple of these up here. One thing that I've noticed when I've done this exercise with some of my students is that the answers tend to be quite big, right? So Alfred Nobel changed from an explosive expert to starting the Nobel Peace Prize. A lot of these are big things. And what I want to do here is I want to add on a little nuance. So keep putting your answers in chat. And now I have a slightly new question. We're actually going to do a little trivia. We're going to do a little trivia. You ready? Okay, so here's the rule on this trivia. No Googling. No Googling on this trivia. Do I have your promise? Okay, so here is the very first trivia question I have for you. Get ready. Let's see who gets it first. Who won the last Nobel Peace Prize? Who won the last Nobel Peace Prize? I don't know. Obama, I don't know. Question mark, no idea. So this is interesting, right? So I haven't seen, oh, someone said Ethiopia. Really good job. Yes, you are absolutely right. So a lot of people don't know this answer, right? I want you to do the next trivia question. Okay, next one. If you didn't get that one, that's okay. Shake it off, shake it off. Okay, next trivia question. Are you ready? No Googling. Who was a teacher that changed your life? Who is a teacher that changed your life, your personal life? Here we go. Oh, people said Vanessa, that's very kind. Miss Uribe, Miss Bayer, Mr. Schmidt, Mrs. Jordan, my father, Mrs. Gray. Okay, just take a look at this. When we're asked who won the last Nobel Peace Prize, or who won the last Heisman Trophy, or who was the last Miss Universe, we don't usually recall those people. But when I ask you, what teacher changed your life? Those answers are right at the tip of your tongue. Or if I were to ask you, we'll do a bonus one. Who's a person who has loved you? Who's a person who has loved you? Hopefully you can think of that person right away. So what I want to share here and what we're moving towards, I don't know if you can feel the sense that we're moving towards something, which is, I think when we think about finding our calling, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves that it has to be big, right? That we have to change the world, that we have to write books and create blogs and create the next nanotechnology. And we have this huge pressure that it has to be big. And that can sometimes take a lifetime. What I want us to think about is some smaller ways that we can find our calling, that actually who we remember and what really sticks out in our mind are some of the smaller things, like being kind, like laughing, like being helpful. And so what I want to do is think about finding our calling and take off the pressure. We can take off the pressure about having it to be something big. By the way, these are beautiful. If you look in here, my wife, my mom, my parents, my doggy, my husband, Deb, grandmother, my daughter. Those people are right there for you. Okay, so let's actually go into, I want to start with my very first part of this curriculum. And it would be really helpful right now, get out a pen and paper because we're going to start doing some deeper questions. Okay, let's go ahead and get that started. By the way, thank you for being here. I'm like so jazzed by this and by you. Okay, this is like my favorite topic to talk about. So most people approach finding their calling with, what's my passion? Now, I love a passion. Don't get me wrong. I love passion, but it's kind of a hard question, right? If you've ever been told, oh, just do what you love, monetize your passion, you're like, what does that even mean? And so I actually kind of want to put this question to the side, and I want to do a radically different approach to your fulfillment. I have another drawing for you. So whenever I think about fulfillment, I like to think about this visually. And I think about our contentment, our fulfillment, feeling like we're answering the call as a structure. So I knew you want to see my drawing full screen, so we should go full screen for that. So I sort of see this. So when we're aiming at fulfillment, right? That's what we really want. Right? Fulfillment is sort of the big goal. We want to wake up excited. We want to wake up content. We want to feel like, yes, my work has meaning. My life has meaning. So what holds this up is, I think, 4 different pillars. And the very first pillar is what we just talked about, which is impact. And a lot of us don't think about, what do we want people to say about us? That interesting experience that Nobel had was that he got to see exactly what his legacy was. And we don't often think about, what do we want people to say about us? When we're out in the world, what kind of stories are we giving other people to think about us? So the very first one is impact. And that can be both big and small. I think that's the first thing, is we like to feel like we're making both big and small impact. The second one here, see if I can do this symmetrically, is our time. And this is where I think it gets more interesting. I think that most people, let's get us back into our slides. So I think that most people don't realize that how they're spending their time is actually what's creating all of these stories about them. So here's what I want to replace what's my passion with. This is the question that gets us a little bit out of our comfort zone. It's going to surprise you. Are you ready? What do I want my calendar to look like? I think that a lot of times when we're thinking about calling, we're thinking about passion, we get kind of esoteric. We think in broad strokes. We think, yes, I want to make people happy and I want to be loving. But when it actually comes down to the day-to-day, the choices that you make, what you're doing with your schedule, I think your calendar says a lot about you. I love sneaking into people's calendars. I love it. I think if you want to see what someone truly values, all you have to do is look at their calendar. You can see exactly what someone is prioritizing. So what I want to do right now, if you'd be willing, is I want you to actually open up your calendar, and I want to answer a couple of questions about it. We're going to do a little self-diagnosis. So when you look at your calendar, in the last 30 days, what are the things that have directly contributed to your ideal elevator pitch? So the answers you gave me on this past page about what you want people to say about you, if you looked at the last 30 days of your calendar, how many of those things on your calendar would directly contribute to you being kind, you being helpful, you being real, you making the world better, you being a poet, you creating laughter? If you were to look at your calendar, could you see that every day you were doing something that was in service of these things? Or are there not as many entries? On the other side, looking at the month ahead, and by the way, someone said 0, someone said not as many. This is the problem. I think we put a lot of thought towards what we want people to think, but when it actually comes to our daily, hourly, minute decisions, we're not putting as much time towards it. And by the way, everyone, so if you said 0, all you have to do is say you do have one thing, which is you showed up to this class. You showed up to this class, and that is a huge thing in service of these goals. And it's okay if you do not use a calendar. You can just think about, what have you done in the last 30 days that have contributed to these? And by the way, we are going to send out the recording of this webinar. So if you have to bounce off early, or you can't watch the whole thing, or you're coming in now, don't worry, you can watch the replay. I also highly encourage, in the replay, you could even pause and do this exercise. It takes, in my dream world, we would be doing this for an entire day, but no one has an entire day to spare. Okay, so next thing I want you to think about is your next 30 days. So when you're thinking about your next 30 days, how many things could you do that could directly contribute to your ideal elevator pitch? What do you have coming up that you could say, yes, this is directly in service of making the world a better place, of being a creative thinker, of being more loving, of being an influencer? What are the things that you're doing that are coming up that are directly contributing to that? Now, for those of you who say, I don't have control over my calendar, this is the #1 reason why we keep pushing off the answer to finding our calling, right? We say, I don't have the time right now. I'm not in control of my calendar. I'm too tired. I'm too busy. So I want you to think about, what parts of your calendar can you control? Maybe it's not 9 to 5 on work days. Maybe it's not when you're taking care of your kids during the day, although some would say that maybe that's their calling. How many hours a month do you have dedicated to actually saying, I'm going to dedicate it to one of these things. That could be 5 hours, that could be 10 hours, that could be 20 hours. I think a lot of us, we feel like we're not in control of our calendar, but maybe we have 1 hour before bed. Maybe we have a couple of hours before work. And what do? We go home and we watch Netflix. And I love a good Netflix show, but Netflix, I'm just guessing, Netflix or Hulu is not in service of these things. So what I want you to think about is how many hours a month do you have control over, and what are you doing with those hours? Are you making them purposeful, or are you letting them go by the wayside? Now is the time to begin to take control of those hours. And here's the last question here is, what do you not want on your calendar? This is the really big one. And I actually would be curious in chat, what do you not want on your calendar? So what do you have a lot of on your calendar that you wish wasn't on your calendar? So not only the ideal day or the ideal month, but what do you like on a dream day, on a dream month? That's what I don't want to do. So I'm curious. I'm going to stop sharing. I want to see what you have to say about what you do not want on your calendar. By the way, you might find that there are some similar answers to you. All right, let's see. Okay, chores, wasted time, too much social media. Might be time for a digital detox, right? The next 30 days might be a digital detox. Meetings, email checking, procrastination, working a second paycheck job. I hear you. Netflix time, too much Netflix, doctor's appointments. Oh, I love it. I like blank days, too many meetings. So when we're thinking about crafting our calendar, I actually think this is the side door into finding our calling. Thinking about what's our calling is a really big question, but thinking about how do I want to spend my ideal day and what do I not want in my ideal day, that's something that we can actually control and begin to work on immediately. We can begin to work on bringing more ideal things into our day and getting rid of the bad things one day at a time. All right, next question we're going to go through here is, get back into my slides. Okay, so we have these really important 4 questions, right? And you can actually take a screenshot of this if you'd like, so you can kind of brainstorm it a little bit later. Here's the thing. I'm going to give you a couple of case studies and examples. I think a lot of the time, the reason why I have students do this exercise is because their big goal and the answer to these questions don't align. So we have this big idea that we want to change the world or do something big, but when it actually comes to the day-to-day, we're watching Netflix, or we're doing a bunch of meetings, or we're doing things that don't actually contribute to it. And this is a really big one. I hear this all the time. I think my calling is to write a book. I want to write a book because I love writing. This is a great calling. I obviously love to write. I loved working on books, but here's where it gets interesting. What most people don't realize is that writing a book, about 10% of it is actually writing. If you love writing, writing a book is a terrible idea. And the reason for that is because I probably spent about 5 months actively writing Captivate. That was 4.5 years ago. Since then, I've been talking about it, marketing it, doing webinars about it, but I haven't written for Captivate since that 5 months in 4.5 years. If you love writing on a daily basis, if you wish that you had more writing in your calendar, when you look at your ideal 30 days, writing a book would actually not be the thing. That would be much better to blog or write a journal or write short stories. And so what I want you to think about is thinking about your ideal, your dream, what you think you want people to say about you. What does that mean on a day-to-day basis? What does that mean for your calendar? If you have a really big idea, then writing a book is a great thing because all you do is write about it and then you talk about it for the rest of your life. My big idea was that people skills matter, and that is all I talk about every day. Here's the other one that recently came up. So I had a student that came to me and said, I really wanted to be a teacher because I love learning. I really wanted to be a teacher. I loved school and I loved learning. So she went to school, got her master's in education, worked really hard to be a teacher, got her dream job at a dream school, and then after 3 years realized she was unhappy. And the reason for this is because what she didn't realize was that her day-to-day of being a teacher was actually not a lot about learning. That as a really good teacher, she was actually teaching the same curriculum every year over and over again. As a 3rd grade teacher, she was teaching the same 3rd grade curriculum with small tweaks every year. And so she realized that actually on a daily basis, she wasn't doing much learning. She was doing a lot of teaching. She was changing a lot of kids' lives. But the reason why she wanted to get into it was actually not what she was doing on a daily basis. It was not what was filling her calendar. So what I want you to think about is, if you think about a dream job or a passion or some of these answers, is what does that mean on a daily basis? How does that mean you're spending your time? Here's another one that comes up. So I had a good friend of mine who really wanted to be a realtor. She felt like her calling was working with people. She had a talent for selling. She's like, I think I'm going to be a great realtor. I love selling. I love meeting new people. I love homes. I want to dabble in interior design. So she got her certification. She became a realtor. And what she didn't realize is that what her calendar would look like as a realtor. As a realtor, you don't just sell from 9 to 5. You sell a lot on nights and weekends. And so even though she was doing something she was really good at, even though that was her dream job, she was spending her weekends away from her kids and family. She was spending her weekends sitting in big open houses. I drill this in because I think we very rarely think about what we want our tasks and our calendar to look like in service of this bigger goal. And so how do you want your calendar? How do you want your day to look like? Here's the other interesting aspect of a calling. If something is really your calling, it bangs down your door, leaves endless voicemails, and never stops calling. If not, it's just a hobby. It is absolutely okay to have hobbies that are different from your calling. Hobbies you dabble in, you do them occasionally. Callings never leave you alone. I think there's a reason why it's called a calling, is it literally calls you all the time. It means that when you get home from work or you get home from a long day, instead of wanting to watch Netflix, that calling is literally calling to you. And so I want to make a distinction here of, there are things that are small, that are hobbies, that are passions, and those are great. But a calling is something that you cannot not do. It's literally pulling at you. And I think that that's the difference between a calling and a hobby. And this ties me to a bigger question that we often ask, which is, what's my purpose? So when we go to our pillars, let's go to our pillars for a second. So we have impact, and then the next one is time. Hard to write like that. And then this next one, unfortunately, is a part of life, which is money. And I think that we don't often think about this, especially if you want to be an entrepreneur, or if you're trying to think about how to support your family, is, does your calling have to be monetized? Here's a story from one of my students who loved making soaps for friends and family. She would make her own soap. She'd add her own lavender and her own peppermint. She'd make her own scents, and she loved it. She's like, this is my calling. And then she decided, I'm going to sell it. Right? I'm going to monetize my passion, which I think is the immediate next step. People always think, do what you love. And they think about, how can I monetize what I love? So she began to make the soap in big vats. She had to get a little commercial kitchen. Then she had to sell it at farmer's market. And then all of a sudden, she was having to sell that soap to her friends and family. And she realized there was a disconnect. On a daily basis, she absolutely loved making a handmade batch of soap and gifting it to her friends and family. The moment she began to monetize it, it took all the passion away. When she looked at her calendar, it was long stretches in a commercial kitchen over a whole big, huge vat where she had to standardize the recipe, so she couldn't use any of her creativity. And then she was spending her time selling to the people she used to gift to. So I want you to think about, okay, if you've thought about how you want to make an impact and you've thought about how you want to spend your time, do you want to monetize it, and how do you want to monetize it? Are you comfortable selling to your friends and family or yourself? And this is one I hear about a lot. People say, I want to be a thought leader, or I want to be an influencer, or I want to give a TED Talk. And those things are amazing, but I'm going to share something from personal experience. It is really hard to sell yourself. So I have a lot of entrepreneurial friends, and all of my entrepreneurial friends who sell a thing, sell a toy, a food, and a recipe, I'm a little jealous of them, because when you sell a thing, it's not really about you. You're selling that thing. You're able to talk about the benefits of that thing. When you're a thought leader or an influencer or a writer or a TED Talker, you're selling yourself. You're selling your ideas. And when people don't agree with you, they attack you. So what I would also really challenge you to think about is, if you want to enter that realm, or if you want to think about your impact and your monetization, what are you comfortable selling, or what are you not comfortable selling? And this is even more specific. This is way out of comfort zone. I know it's usually never talked about on webinars, but how do you really want to deal with money? Do you like to have a paycheck just deposited directly into your account? You don't have to talk about it. You don't have to negotiate about it. Does it make you uncomfortable to talk about money? Then you would not want to have a calling that you're monetizing. You would not want to be at a farmer's market and be haggled with. Or do you love talking about money? Do you love negotiating and haggling and raising your rates and finding bargains and finding deals? The way that we think about money can absolutely affect how we make an impact. Because if we're afraid to talk about money, or it makes us uncomfortable, it all of a sudden takes all the joy and all the excitement out of our passion. So here's the final exercise that I want us to think about: your to-do list. So maybe you have a to-do list near your computer, maybe you have a to-do list in your phone. I want you to take it out. What do you want your to-do list to look like? In your dream world, what are you doing on a daily basis? When you get home from work, at work, what do you wish your to-do list looks like? Second, I think everyone in life should have a not to-do list. A not to-do list are the things that drain you, they're the things that you dread, and they're also the things that you're not as good at. I call this C or D work. I have a video on YouTube, you're welcome to check it out. It's about alphabet work. Our A work and our B work is the work that you're best at. Our C and D work is the work we're not so good at, and our F work is work that we're really bad at. So what are things that you don't want to do? What's on your not to-do list? So if you know that you don't like selling, you would not want to go into a calling or dabble in a calling where you have to sell yourself. And lastly here, if you don't control your to-do list, so if you're in a job where you don't control your to-do list, or you have to do a lot at home that you can't control, in the small areas that you can control, how do you wish to fill them in? In that 1 hour a week, what do you wish you had on your list? Is it writing? Is it creating? Is it being kind? Is it laughing? Is it writing poetry? As someone said they wanted to be a poet. What goes in that wish to-do list? And I want you to actually write this out. So pull out a piece of paper or a sticky note, and on one note, I want you to write my dream to-do list. What do you wish that to-do list would look like? And what's really important about this exercise is I'm trying to take very big ideas and big goals that we started with at the beginning of the webinar and break them down into granular items. If you want to be someone who changes the world, right? So someone said that was a beautiful answer. I loved it. Okay, so you said make the world better, which I love. What does that mean your to-do list looks like on a daily basis, on an hourly basis? If you had the rest of the afternoon off, what would you want to do? And then on a second Post-it note or a second piece of paper, I want you to write your not to-do list. In your dream world, what are you not doing? I saw a couple people mention social media. I found a couple people say Netflix. What's on your not to-do list? The last question, the biggest question here that I think we have to talk about is, what should I do with my life, right? That's the biggest thing that comes with callings. And here's the most mushy-gushy part of this webinar. I hope you'll go with me on it, which is when we're talking about this fulfillment, we're talking about impact, we're talking about time, we're talking about money, but we're also talking about our imagination, where our mind goes at rest. And so this last pillar, last one that holds this up, is play. And what I mean by play is not just physical play, dabbling in ideas, experimenting with ideas. It's where you go in your mind. When you're on a long car ride, what do you daydream about? Where does your mind play? Is it thinking about changing the world? Or is it thinking about tinkering at home? Or is it thinking about your children? Or is it thinking about cooking something? Or is it thinking about the book you want to write? Where do you daydream now? And what do you want to daydream about? This last one here is play. This is the most overlooked aspect of finding our calling. It's, what does your mind do at rest? What do you want to be dreaming about ruminating about? And lastly, what do you want to worry about? So this is a really important one, because there is no line of work, there is no calling that's perfect. There's no line of work, there is no calling that's all good. There's always going to be things that you don't like to do. The question is, are there worries that you like? Are there worries that you're comfortable with? For example, as an entrepreneur, your income is typically pretty radical. You don't necessarily know where your income is coming. Are you okay with that? Are you okay having that be one of your worries? When you lay down at night and you put your head on a pillow, are you okay having that be one of your worries? I knew when I signed up to be an entrepreneur, I was okay worrying about having a little bit of fluctuation in my money, about really having to hustle for my money. That was actually something that felt exciting and challenging to me. What I didn't want to worry about was I didn't want to worry about my time. I wanted to have total flexibility of time. And so I traded one worry for the other. My value, one of my biggest priorities in my to-do list is having complete flexibility with what I can do in a day, even if that comes at a little bit of volatility. So what I want you to think about, do you want to leave work at work? Do you want to have the kind of job where you're calling where you can leave it? You don't have to worry about it as much. How comfortable are you with risk or not? Does your calling have to be monetized? And if so, how much do you want to risk there? I'm getting really, really specific here because I don't like talking about the generalities of passions. No, I want to really talk about what kind of risk are you comfortable with? What do you want to daydream about? And what do you want to worry about? On a good day, you're daydreaming. On a bad day, and there are always bad days, even if you're finding your calling, even in a perfect job, what do you want to worry about? And here is the last kind of big idea. One thing I didn't realize when I started my business is that because I love it, because it is my calling to do these webinars for you, I love teaching, I love helping you find your goals, is that this is what I would be talking about for the next 20 years at least. And so you have to make sure that if you're going to double down your calling or you really want to be known for something, are you okay talking about that for the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? Daydream about it, worrying about it. I love thinking about my students. I love worrying about my students. It is a great privilege in my life to worry that my students aren't learning enough. That is a worry I love. It's hard, right? I want to make sure that I get my students out of the course, that they get their goals, that we get good reviews, but that's a worry that I choose because I love it, even on a bad day. Here's the thing with play. I think we have to make lots of calls, right? A lot of us think about we have to have one calling. Why? I think there are lots of calls. And the way that we play is we're constantly making all different types of calls and calling. And that means that every time you make a call, you learn. So here's my goal after today. I want you to look at your calendar. I want you to look at your to-do list. And I want you to think to yourself, is there something that I can do practically with my list in the next 30 days that will get me a little bit closer to this answer? In the next hour, is there something I can do that will get me a little bit closer to this answer? I have had the great privilege and pleasure, I'll actually go full screen for this, of helping hundreds, if not thousands of students find their calling, and it happened accidentally. What I didn't realize is that when we begin to work on ourselves, when we're out of our comfort zone, so many magical things happen. So when we're out of our comfort zone, we're already in learning mode. We're already in growth mindset. And so one of the best things that have happened as a side effect of People School is that people have gone in People School with a very specific professional goal. So the very first thing you do when you go into People School is you pick a professional goal. And then in the process of finding that professional goal, they realize they have a different kind of calling. We have a phrase that sometimes I use behind the scenes at Science People, which is, you want to climb the ladder, but you have to make sure you're on the right ladder. And so sometimes as you're working on your goals and you're climbing up the ladder, you realize, uh-oh, this is not the ladder that I wanted to climb. So what I would love to do is everything I just talked about is hopefully going to give you some very concrete steps into taking a big idea of one calling, breaking it up into multiple different callings, and seeing about actually putting that into reality. If any of these pillars for you have to do with relationship skills, communication skills, people skills, if you need to get buy-in from someone in your life, a manager, a boss, a partner, your kids, to get more control over your calendar or your to-do list, I would love to help you with that piece of it. So for those of you who are in People School, actually, by the way, I know we have some People School students here right now, so pop in a chat and say hi. If you need a little help on the people skills side, on the communication skills side, I would love to talk to you a little bit about People School. People School is our advanced communication skills training. We teach 12 advanced people skills specifically for professionals. And what I decided to do today was a little bit more like a game show. Are you ready? I've been looking forward to this part all day. There's So many pretty Post-its. Okay, so here's what I want to do. Oh, good. Okay, we have some amazing People School students here. Oh, fantastic. Oh, see, People School will be one of the best investments you'll ever make. I love you. Thank you. Gary said, love me some People School. Previous People School student. You're always a People School student if you're in People School. Oh my goodness. Okay, so you can see in chat here, Tracy said me. Francie said I did it last year and learned a lot. Loved it. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to walk you through some of the things that you'll learn and see if this resonates with you. If any piece of this will help you get closer to your calling, amazing. I would love to help. If you're like, nope, not for me, cool. I want you to go do all the exercises we already talked about. So here's what we do in People School. There's actually 12 different lessons in People School. And the way that I structured it was I wanted to give everyone the communication curriculum I wish I had had. It's sort of like a tool set. You can use it professionally with bosses, negotiations, interviews, also socially, making friends, building connections, deepening relationships. So not just cold approaching. We actually have a whole bonus on cold approaching, but actually building deeper, more fulfilling friendships and getting rid of toxic people is a really big part of it. And then, of course, a little bit romantically. Now, we don't talk a lot about romance in People School, but we do talk about the communication needed for really deep relationships. So here we go. You ready for a Post-it? Okay. So the very first thing that I teach you in People School is the charisma formula. So this is when people meet you, when they're interacting with you, how are they judging if they can trust you and they can relate to you? This is sort of our relationship action plan. It's our relationship operating framework. A lot of students tell me that when they learn this formula, it explains why relationships haven't gone well in the past and why they could go better. Number two, this is most students' favorite skill. So at the very end of People School, we have a big survey where we try to get feedback from you so we can make People School even better. And almost all of our students say that number 2 and number 10 are their favorite skills. So 2 is about powerfully sharing ideas. The very first communication skill everyone should know is how to speak so people listen, is how to make sure that you're not getting interrupted in meetings, that you're not getting ignored, that you're not getting forgotten. So that's powerfully sharing ideas. Number 3 is once you know how to share those ideas, how do you continue to be engaging? And this is especially important right now in a virtual world. So everything we talk about in People School applies to remote work and in-person work. And as I should also mention, People School is completely virtual. So you can watch all of it on your own time, anytime you want, anywhere in the world. We have people from all over. Oh, amazing. We have people saying that they were, oh, okay, Lisa said, I switched to the right ladder after People School. Lisa, thank you for sharing that. You were in my mind when I was talking about that. Lisa's one of our amazing People School students, and she found that she had to switch ladders while she was going through People School. Thanks, Lisa, for saying that. So being engaging, how do we engage people and keep them engaged even virtually? Number 4, people, it is hard to keep attention. We have to work at keeping people's attention to be more memorable. So how do we do that? Not only in first impressions, but also during meetings, during negotiations. How do we make sure that we're authentically capturing attention? And this is really important. I specifically built People School for introverts, ambiverts, and extroverts. So keeping attention or capturing attention is not about being the loudest person in the room. In fact, I like to teach specific strategies and frameworks for introverts to be able to capture attention in an authentic way. Number 5 is all about building trust. So trust is incredibly important in relationships, especially if you feel that you've been stuck at a tier in relationships. Maybe you can't get past the first 3 dates, or maybe you have friends, but you don't have any best friends, or you feel like you get along with your boss, but you're not getting invited over to his or her house for dinner, or you're not really deeply connecting with your colleagues. That has to do with how we build trust in a deeper way. All right, number 6 is decoding people. So this is about decoding facial expressions, decoding body language. All throughout People School, we're talking about both verbal and nonverbal channels, but this skill is specifically all about nonverbal. So we really dive into my favorite nonverbal strategies for decoding emotions. 7. So 7 is actually one of my favorite skills. I love it so much. This is about how do we communicate powerfully. Specifically, how do we use our voice, our vocal techniques? How do we use what's called rhetoric to be able to have people really adopt our ideas? If you're interested in influence and getting people to get on your side authentically without manipulating people, which there's a fine line between the two, that's that skill. Skill number 8, how to be, by the way, that's a little small, I apologize, how to be authentically likable. I've always been obsessed with the most likable person in the room. I've always wondered, how are people so likable? And so in this skill, I got to dive into the science of likability, and it might surprise you how we actually become likable. And this is also the skill where I teach you the 3 tiers of conversation. So if you want to be a master conversationalist, that's all in this skill. All right. Number 9. So after I teach you the 3 steps of conversation, we actually talk about what is it like to have interesting, engaging, captivating, my favorite word, captivating conversation. So this is an advanced conversation section. So if you really want to build rapport quickly, and you don't even have to be in sales to do this. This can be done with partners, with spouses, with parents, with friends. All right, number 10. This is so I mentioned that number 2 and number 10 were most people's favorites. Number 10, assertiveness. I think an overlooked people skill is assertiveness. Assertiveness is being able to stand up for yourself, about getting rid of toxic people, about stating your needs and boundaries in a way that people will listen to and accept and respect. And so skill number 10 was a really fun one for me to teach. And I love watching students go through it because they're always so empowered after they go through it. So that's about how to be assertive professionally and socially. 11. So I talked a little bit about influence, dabbling throughout, but 11 is actually when I say the last 2 skills are sort of the most advanced. And this is about how do we really increase our influence in all areas? And how do we do this ethically? And how we do this in a way that allows people to get on our team? And as you build a team, the last and final section is the 5 aspects of successful teams. This is really about building connections. It's also my framework for dealing with difficult people. You'll notice, by the way, it literally takes 12 skills to get to dealing with difficult people. And that's because, man, they are tough nuts to crack, but you can do it. So in number 12, I give you my framework for building connections and avoiding transforming those difficult people. The cool part about People School is we also have tons and tons and tons of bonuses, and we are adding those all the time. So I'm just going to pull some of these off quickly. The very first thing that you get when you enroll in People School is a reel, like we actually mail it to you. We mail you a big box in the mail, a beautiful workbook, and a whole bunch of goodies. So little things, I'm not going to tell you what they are, but they're really fun. So you're going to get a whole box of real goodies that we actually send you no matter where you are in the world. So we have students from all over the world, and we send you a real life goodie box. Number 2, yes. So we have usually about 3 different kinds of students who go through People School, if this sounds like you. So we have our entrepreneurs or our high achieving professionals. These are people who really have a lot of potential. They're already having a little bit of success, but they want even more. They're usually working at a different company and they want to level up even more. The second group is entrepreneurs or people who are thinking about entrepreneurship. And we help them build their business with finding the right customers, talking to clients, how to talk to investors, how to talk about your product, how to stand out. And the last group, and I'm hoping that's a lot of people watching right now, are our pivoters. So our pivoters are people who they think they might need to ladder switch. They are looking for something to inspire them, to change them. Maybe they're in between jobs, they're looking for jobs, and they're using People School as a way to make the right next choice. I love having pivoters. I don't have a favorite because I love all my students, but I do love a pivoter because I love watching their journey as they go through People School. For that, we have a great bonus that's on getting your raise. That's either asking for a raise, and I give you an actual formula for asking for a raise, or raising your rates. How do you do that as an entrepreneur? So you can kind of keep that in your back pocket. A lot of students have told us that they watched that bonus the first time they went through People School, but then later when they were ready for a performance review, they re-watched it as a way to prep because you have People School forever. So these videos are here for you forever. So maybe the first time you go through it, you really love the top skills, but you're not really into influence. But then later in 3 or 4 years down the line, you have a job where you really need to work on your influence. That skill will always be there for you to watch, which I love when students come back and rewatch. Number three, so one thing we added, People School's dynamic content, meaning we have all of our skills, but I am constantly adding bonuses based on what's happening in the world, what's happening with work trends. And so when a lot of us went remote and started working virtually, I added an entire remote work bonus. How to work virtually effectively, how to run Zoom calls effectively, so you have your whole remote work guide. And I'm probably gonna be adding more to that in the next few weeks as well. Don't you love these Post-its? I love a good Post-it. Okay, number 4 is your office hours library. So the other huge part of People School I haven't even talked about yet is it's completely virtual. You can take it anytime, anywhere. And we also have live office hours, just like this, but maybe even more fun. Sometimes we listen to music, we watch videos. I save about 30 minutes of office hours where I do brand new teaching every single month. So the latest science, the latest tips, we look at examples. And the last 30 minutes, I answer your questions. We do your elevator pitches. We look at what's called your log line, which you're going to learn in skill number 4. And so I actually get to work with you and coach you. And that's my favorite part of the month. I look forward to it all month long. I love office hours because I actually get to know you. I get to help you with your goal. One of the things you do when you first get into People School is you pick a goal, and then I help you track it all the way through. Bonus number 5 and bonus number 6. So bonus number 5 and number 6 are all about finding your people. So I don't know if you can see that. It's kind of low down there. So it says relationship planner. One thing that we have in People School waiting for you is we have a relationship planner on taking control of your relationships and thinking about how you want to level up specific relationships in your life. So we actually have a planner for that, as well as a bonus on finding your people, finding the right kind of people, the people who fulfill you, the people that support you, the people that you really love. Bonus number 7 is we decided early on to make audio files of every single video lesson. So of all of our video lessons, we added audio files. And what a lot of our students will do is they'll watch the video, then they'll listen to the audio while they're running or while they're cooking or on their commutes. And so we added audio files to all the video files. And I'm very proud to announce that we also created a People School app. So not only can you watch it on a desktop, but completely included is also a app for you to watch People School on the go. And so we put all the videos in there as well, so you can watch them on your phone, on your commute, while you're waiting, and that way you can watch it at your own time and your own pace. And by the way, thanks to our teammate Scott, who built that app for you. He actually built it. He's amazing. Okay. There's a lot here, so we have a ton more bonuses. I actually couldn't fit them all on the page. It would be too many Post-it notes. We have social meditations. We have cold approach bonuses. I have a Captivate bonus chapter in there, so I actually had an entire chapter of Captivate that my editor didn't let me put in because we were over word count. Captivate is already pretty long, and so she has this one chapter that we couldn't put in, but she allowed me to give it away as a bonus. So the only place you can get that extra chapter for Captivate, which I love, is in People School. I have 2 extra bonuses that I want to give today. So because I really want to have a fall of learning, I really want to have some new students in that I can help you work through your calling as you build your communication skills, as I have 2 special bonuses right now that we're offering for the next, I believe, 48 hours. If you register for the next 48 hours, I filmed a brand new bonus called Micro Wins. This is a free class. I've never published it publicly. It's never on YouTube. I've never had a public webinar for it. And it's about the science of productivity. So a question I get asked all the time is, how do you get so much done? How do you fit so much time into a day? How can I optimize my calendar even more? So if you've been playing around in your calendar today, I filmed an extra bonus on how I would like you to structure your calendar around micro wins. And this is exactly how I operate my entire task list. It's how I get everything done. It's how I wrote Captivate. It's how I run the business. And so I actually dive into my real productivity hacks, and it's only available as a little bonus extra. You can't even buy it on its own right now. And we also decided to do something extra special. Is right now, if you buy, you'll also get our lie detection class for free. So included with your People School purchase, we will also send you our lie detection class, which is $100. You get that absolutely included for free, as well as the Micro Wins bonus. So what I want to do right now is I want to revisit some questions that we talked about. And I want you to think about the next 30 days of your life. Let's not think about your entire life. That's too big, right? I want you to think about the next 30 days. And what I want you to think about is these 4 pillars. What kind of impact do you want to leave people with? How do you want to be spending your time? What do you want your calendar to look like? What do you wish you were doing more of? What do you wish you were doing less of? I'm thinking about, how do you want to monetize? How do you want to talk about money? How do you want to talk about risk? How does that fit into your passion, if it fits into your passion? And lastly, this is the most important part. Whether you join People School or not, I want you to use the next 30 days as a time to play. What do you want to daydream about? What do you want your mind to go to when it's at rest? Instead of thinking about one calling, can you begin to make multiple calls to see if you can find something that feels like it hits the right spot, that it hits the right spark? If you want to join us in People School, I would love it. It's scienceofpeople.com/enroll, or you can click the People School button on Science of People page. I would love to have you. We're going to be doing a very special office hours for everyone who joins in the next few days. And of course, those 2 bonuses are only around for the next 48 hours. So you have to buy in the next 48 hours to get those 2 extra bonuses. But mostly, I want to thank you so much for coming today. You coming today is actually beginning to make those calls. It's beginning to play. It's one big thing that you did in this 30 days to make sure that you're actually contributing towards what you hope will be your calling. So I want to thank everyone for joining, for being so brave and so active in chat. You're all so wonderful. If you have ideas for the next class you want me to do, be sure to email into support. I'm always looking for new webinar ideas. I love putting these on for free. They're my life's work. It's my calling to help you find your calling. It's what I daydream about. It's what I worry about. And I want to say I'm so grateful for all of you for supporting my work and being open-minded to take that next step in learning in your next adventure. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, night, morning.